You're listening to a podcast by the Center for Action and Contemplation. To learn more, visit cac.org.
Welcome to Love Period. This is Jacqui Lewis, and I'm so delighted to welcome today my guest, Kevin Garcia, who is a public theologian, a wonderful human being, and absolutely authentically himself, which means occasionally, just occasionally, a blue language flies. And we decided not to bleep out Kevin because we're not bleeping out who he is. If you are not used to colorful words, you have little ones listening, you might want to turn the volume down. So just giving you a fair warning, and also apologies if it offends you. It delighted me. But this podcast, today's episode, will inspire you. It will help you to think about love in a new way. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacqui Lewis, and this is Love Period, a podcast about how to love ourselves, our posse, and the world fiercely, on the way to making the world better. I'm so glad today that my guest is Kevin Garcia. They are a public theologian whose pulpit is most often social media. Kevin and I bump into each other out in the world, speaking when we can. They are an author, a podcast meister, and a love warrior. Kevin Garcia.
Oh, what's up?
So glad you're here today.
I am thrilled.
Thank you, honey. It's good to be able to do this for real, right?
I know. It's like the world is both moving very, very fast and also not quick enough right now, it seems. So I'm glad to have some time with you.
I am so thrilled to have some time with you. I feel like you're this person that I should be best friends with, but we don't have time. That's how it feels.
I feel so when I look at you, I feel very similar. I'm just I don't know if you know, but I'm watching you and I'm watching the way that you move through the world. And yeah, I also think that we if we lived in the same place, we would have such a good time.
We would. I feel like it would be Chardonnay, cheese and crackers, and great theology, right?
100%.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's my ideal afternoon. That's just a Tuesday for me.
That's great. Kevin, you are the podcast king, so everybody knows their many stories that they know. But what's been really beautiful about bringing people to Love Period is that I have this varied posse.
Yeah.
Oh, so really, Barbara Brown Taylor and Kevin Garcia, right? And Titus Burgess, right? So
it's you are what is it, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
Yes, that's right. That's correct. I am. But one of the things that I would love to do is just to ask you a little bit about your story, your origin story. Garcia is not an American name.
Not an American name at all.
Not an American name. Could you tell us a little bit about you, just how you got to be you?
Right. I think every queer faith story begins with, at least in America, I grew up in a good Christian home. And my mama was the worship leader. My uncle was the pastor. My dad was 29 years military. I was the third of 4 sons.
Wait, 29 years military? Which branch?
The Army, 101st Airborne Division. So.
What?
Yeah. And you actually know what that is, apparently, because
because I think my brother Ronald Lewis is 101st Airborne Division.
I know who Ronald Lewis is.
Stop
yes.
It!
So
that's my brother.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we were literally right here.
Yeah. In Texas? Where were you stationed? Where did your daddy go?
Fort Campbell and then Virginia, but they were deployed all the time. And I remember, during formal season or the 101st, whenever we wrote out Christmas letters or would go to the function, it's okay, say hello to, Mr. Lewis and all the people. All of my dad's friends were just...
Don't you think that's the weirdest 2 degrees of separation right there?
That's phenomenal for me.
I have chills. Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. 4 brothers.
No.
Army.
Oh, yeah. So you can imagine, where I was set up for just, a very particular kind of life.
Yes.
We were, socially conservative. We were religiously conservative. And also we didn't have a reason to question it because my dad, though a Mexican man, more fair-skinned and also married my mother, who is a white woman.
Okay.
And so we got white names: Kevin, Patrick, Robert, Kevin, and Ryan. with the last name Garcia, specifically because my mom didn't want us to have any trouble when applying for jobs later in life, because my mom understood the game.
Wow.
So, but yeah, fast forward, we're living in Virginia. I realize in high school that I'm queer, and my dad, through a very, very tough conversation we had, outed me to my mother, and we got put in, and by we, I mean me, I got put in ex-gay therapy for 12 years.
You've got to be freaking kidding me. 12 years, not a year, not let's see if it works. 12 years?
Yeah, and it was mostly like once they took me the first time, it was pretty much self-imposed, if I'm being honest. Because I already thought in my head, I was taught my whole life that homosexuality is an abomination before God. And I talk like that because that's how my family talks. I'm not making fun of people in the South. But that's what we were taught. That's what I learned. And I wanted nothing more than to please God. I had this really wonderful experience at 9 years old where I felt spirit for the first time. And I didn't recognize it, that's what it was, until much later in life, because people told me to calm down and stop being dramatic. And then I started reading about like all of these saints who had all of these like dramatic experiences with spirit. And I'm like, no, that's me. I once I went, I was told like, it's not your fault that you've got these same-sex attractions, but it is your duty as a Christian to resist them, because marriage is between one man and one woman, et cetera, et cetera. So for 12 years, I was in and out of different kinds of groups and programs, even into college, because I was really dedicated to not wanting to do the thing that was displeasing to God. To the point where when I was in school, I was kind of living a double life where like I was in a fraternity and I was half in and half out of the closet. And then I also went to church and was on the worship team and, fighting my demons all the time, spiraling in my behaviors, went to become a missionary because I thought that was going to be the thing that saved my soul. Or if I serve God enough, maybe God would heal me. And then you get back from the mission, and by you, I mean me. I got back from the mission field. I was incredibly depressed. I attempted twice. And then at the end of that second attempt, I said to myself, okay, something's got to change. Either I need to learn how to live as a celibate queer person. I didn't say these things. Either got to get in line with celibacy, or I need to figure out something else, because maybe there's a new way of looking at this. And so then I Googled, can you be gay and Christian for the first time?
Wow.
And
how old were you when you did that, love?
24.
Okay.
I think I was 24. And found the Gay Christian Network, found these two things, found Matthew Vines' video on YouTube, and I said, this sounds like heresy to me, because I was a good Christian. But then there was just this part of me that's just like, I so wanted it to be true. I'm just like, how can, that doesn't make sense to me. If God created me good, how could I want sin? And that just clicked with me. I'm just like, these feelings, I know did not come from some outside source. They didn't come from some influence of, media or even assault. It came from somewhere deep within me. Yeah. So fast forward, I'm working for the missions organization because, of course, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, of course.
And I realize I start thinking, okay, maybe there's a different way possible. And I got to this point where I was just like, okay, I'm asking the Spirit, and I'm pretty sure the Spirit is telling me to come out. I'm pretty sure the Spirit is calling me out of the closet.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm just going to be okay with this. And so got on Tinder, because, that's what you do. And I matched with a guy on Tinder, and he invited me to a queer Christian conference in Atlanta.
Wow.
Went there, didn't even talk to him like maybe once. But then my whole life changed after that. And so from summer 2015 on, when I worshiped for the first time in a room full of queer Christians, I said, there's no going back for me. I'm not going back into shame. I'm not going back into a place that is below my worth. And I remember a worship song I used to sing a lot, which is like, my feet have felt the promised land, and I'm not going back. And so I really pressed into that. I'm like, I don't care if I lose my job. I don't care if I lose this community. I have to do this because I've been miserable my whole life, and I'm finally feeling joy for the first time.
Wow, Kevin.
And so I left, summer of 2015, I had no job, no money, no connections, no community. And I slept on an air mattress in a really shitty basement apartment with my best friend, Casey, for about a year, until we were able to get back on our feet. And I do not regret a single moment. So, and now I got a master's degree. I wrote a book, and we're making junk on the internet that people apparently like.
I love it.
That's the short version.
I love that. How does the song go? My feet didn't touch the promised land or something. How's
it was my feet have felt the promised land, and I'm not going back. And you just repeat it. My feet have felt the promised land, and I'm not going back. It's kind of one of those things where you're just like jamming, and then people are free worshiping, and it just... I come from Pentecostal land, so just like...
I love it. My feet touch the promised land, and I'm not going back. Like that?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
If I remember correctly, yeah. Because like we were like the worship culture that I came from in the mission community was so... It really did teach me how to hear Holy Spirit. And then like that parlayed into all of the other practices I now have. I learned like how to hear the voice of God in a space that says you can't be gay. And yet I am, and did.
And heard, could hear, which means you got some good ears. And amen. So, you who, I grew up in a military family too. My dad was Air Force, my brother Army. And I'm just thinking about process and structure and yes, sir, and tight, but tightness.
Oh, yeah.
And add to that the church's weird anti-queer self. How did you learn to be you and love you? And how did you fall in love with you?
That one, it took a long time, to be honest, because when you hear your whole life that you are no good, like, first of all, the teaching that we're all just bad, that originals, like the doctrine of original sin, that says that we can't help but screw things up is false. That's false.
Yes, it is.
Because I believe that I am like my creator, and I believe that we are all like our creator. We are created in love, and therefore there's no cruelty in me or in God. Do I make mistakes and errors? Do we make mistakes and errors? Yes.
Yes.
But like, I feel like the world taught that love meant sacrifice because of like what we learned. And that's also like very indicative of a military family. It was all about sacrificing for the country, sacrificing for the family, and then sacrifice, because Jesus sacrificed himself. We got to be willing to give up everything. And when that shift happened, it was like, oh no, Jesus, he sure gave up his life, but at the same time, it was more so taken from him.
Right.
And I was thinking, once that shift happened in me, I was like, oh my God, they are demanding my life from me. And that's not what Jesus asked, actually. He asked for me to go live.
Yep.
So the process really, it took about, 12 years from all that. And then after I came out, I would say it took a solid... I didn't find a good therapist for 2 years. And I've been working with her for 3 years now. And she was there through my first real relationship, the genesis and the destruction of it. She was there for me when my father passed away. But I think the thing that allowed me to really fall in love with myself was, I think, finding the practices that led me back to life. And what I mean by that is, when I left when I left evangelicalism, when I got kicked out of missionary world, I felt like things like prayer, different kinds of music, different kinds of expression, like, oh, that belongs to them. I left that behind to go out into the weeping of gnashing of teeth. I chose this, and I chose this exile. I can't take those things with me. Yeah. And I had to just talk back to that voice to say, actually, like, was it helpful? Did moving your body in that way feel good? Do those songs still mean something to you? And yeah, I had to admit that, like, that there's still like old hymns that make me cry, and there's still something about the thought of Jesus that gets me in my person. And so as I got into my spiritual practices, I discovered this thing called A Course in Miracles, and
I love that.
Yeah, and so it's what I teach my clients. It's what I work with on a daily basis, and it's basically just a giant love letter from Spirit to remind us that you think that God is fear. You think God is this punisher. You think that God is separation. You think that all these fearful things, but all of that's just an illusion. And and it says, if you would see but for a moment how much God loves you, you would be indescribably happy.
Wow, yeah.
And I just started to believe this idea that maybe God loved me. Mm-hmm. And the Course also says, it is not arrogance to say that you are a child of God. It is arrogance to claim that you are not. Because that is to say you are not as God created you. Right. And you don't. And I'm like, I'm not one to disagree with the creator of the universe. You know? And
who
also,
would I be?
Right? Yeah. And plus, my life is so much richer when I think with love rather than think with fear. And and like, it's so much easier for me to believe that I am fearfully and wonderfully made than it is to think that I am just a piece of shit who's bound to fuck up all the time. Pardon my French, you can bleep it if you need to.
I don't think we should bleep it. I'm just saying out loud. It seems like it goes with what we're saying. So how did you find the Course in Miracles? Did you find it from Marianne Williamson's book on it? Or no? Tell me.
I kind of found it because I started like getting into, the slippery. They tell you about a slippery slope sometimes. And it's not really so much a slippery slope as it is like an arduous uphill battle towards justice, right?
Yes, right.
It's like you find out you can be queer and Christian, and then it's like critical race theory, and then it's womanism, and then it's, a universal Christ.
Yes. Like suddenly you got Katie Cannon, Richard Rohr, you got all kinds of mentors in there, right? Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, I think I found the Course just through different people I was following who would just they would say things like, A Course in Miracles tells us ... And I'm like, what is that about?
Right.
So Google leads to one thing. I listened to Marianne Williamson read A Return to Love, and my whole world, I was like, this sounds like everything that Jesus ever taught, just taken to the nth degree.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe I should check it out. And so I did. And the way, like, I really got into it while I was in seminary too.
Oh yeah. Where'd you go to school?
Columbia Theological Seminary.
In New York? Or the one in the South?
Decatur, Georgia.
In Decatur.
Yeah, where it is greater, apparently.
Yeah.
But I think it was through discovering that and creating my physical practices of meditation and yoga.
Yeah.
So it's like a mindfulness practice and a movement practice. Those are the two ways. And then I think the other part of it was a radical love of my actual body as a person and not just as an object in which my spirit resides. My body is a person. That's something my friend Jamie Lee Finch taught me, is that he has been working so hard to keep me safe for my entire life and loves me so much. And to be able to say that my body loves me at the same time feels like I'm saying, I know that God loves me because God created this thing.
Kevin, I hardly ever hear anybody say that. I hardly ever, I'm a womanist. I think I'm an embodied preacher, worker. I'm just saying my body is a person and he loves me. That's really so helpful a frame.
Yeah, because like if we think about like even the trauma that our body carries in response to is like the body trying to love us and say, no, that's not safe. We've been through that before. You know, we all have read The Body Keeps the Score. We know how it works. Right. And so I think, and this is also something my friend Jamie pointed out recently, is that as we come back into a loving relationship with our bodies, we often there's this thing of your body knows, your body has answers, and your body does. Your body's also traumatized maybe. So not all the data coming in might be helpful. Yeah. So you have to be, as a conscious human who's, here in the body and also at the same time in the spirit, because we are paradoxical. Yeah. You got to ask, okay, what is going to, I see this data, what do I want to do with it? How, and regardless of what it's telling me, the question I always have is, how am I going to return back to peace?
Yeah.
How am I going to return back to equilibrium, to remind myself that I am always in love's presence? And if I can remember what peace feels like, if I can remember what that love feels like, I can always get back there. And my body remembers much of the time.
Yep. That's really beautiful, love. That's so beautiful.
Many of us feel increasing anger at injustice, violence, and indifference in our world today. Join us March 14th for What Do I Do With My Anger? An online gathering featuring Richard Rohr and Brian McLaren. Learn ways of transforming anger into loving action. Inspired by Father Richard's new book, The Tears of Things. Register today at cac.org/anger. That's cac.org/ANGER.
You know, this book I wrote, Fierce Love, it's coming out in November. I was doing the work and doing the research and thinking about love in these 3 concentric circles, right? Loving ourselves, loving the people, our posse. Like, I didn't make that up. Hello, Jesus, you know.
Right.
Love God with everything, love your neighbor as yourself. All the major world's religions, love your neighbor as yourself. And maybe what's the problem is we actually are loving our neighbors as we love ourselves, which is to say we don't love ourselves.
Hello.
So we're loving our neighbors poorly. Like, what if that's the big problem about why people are such stinky butts to each other, right?
I think that's really it.
Like, how can you do it? I'm loving my neighbor exactly like me. I don't like me. I don't like that one because their hair is pink or their
it's like if I can't be joyful and flourish, then nobody else can be joyful and flourish.
You can't either. That's right. So, you know, often in these conversations, when I think about posse, like I did love you, love your posse, love the world, I almost always take us to friends or colleagues. But I do want to just talk to you a little bit about family, because I just think we could do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, you've got brothers, right?
I do.
I've got brothers and a sister, and the posse that is your family can be juicy, lovely, fabulous, flourishing love. It sometimes can be a place where it's hard.
Right. How
do you navigate like the brothers and with the brothers with the Mexican dad?
Yeah.
Right.
We honestly, as far as most siblings are concerned, we actually really like being around each other. Holidays were a highlight for us. I think it's only really, if I'm being honest, within the past 4 years for me, where interactions with family have become a little bit more difficult because as I think, have become more radicalized, if you will. And by that, I mean more conscious and aware of the injustices that exist, especially within America.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard to be home sometimes because I'm feeling like I'm having to like shrink myself.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of times about this thing, I call it the price of admission for any relationship. Like when you go to a fair, you're paying $12 to get in, $10 to ride a ride, $15 for funnel cake, right. $80 for heartburn overall. And you're like, yes, I'm willing to pay that. Right. So it's the same thing with relationships. To be be with my friends, chosen family here in Atlanta, cost of admission is quite low. It's, BYOB, come hang out with us, be yourself. And, if I need a ride sometime, maybe you can help me out. Very low cost. Be yourself and love each other. Wow. What a concept. To be around my family, sometimes the cost is don't talk about your politics and definitely don't talk about your faith practices and definitely don't talk about your queerness. Unless you're talking about like a boyfriend that you're dating. Who's definitely a boy and not anything else.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm learning that at this point in my life, I can't demand my family to change. I can't demand anything of anyone. That's the thing. And so I try really, really hard to just enjoy them as much as possible, to look at them and say, all right, I'm going to radically accept you where you are right now. Because if I don't, I'm going to actively hate you. I'm going to actively be mad at you. I'm going to if I can't, If I'm constantly distracted by the mistakes that I perceive that you are making, I can't actually love you or actually have a coherent conversation if I did need to challenge those narratives.
Yeah.
But but I find for myself that I'm finally okay with it's fine that my family and I are not the closest in the world. Like my brothers and I talk on FaceTime. I've got 2 nieces going on 3 nieces pretty soon.
Oh, wow.
And so I think as like those children grow up, like I feel like the relationship is going to shift just from the nature of trying to be a good uncle and be in their lives. So yeah, family's tricky. Family feels heavy sometimes. I love them to pieces. And I also am somebody who feels very comfortable with the boundaries I've created for myself.
That is a good word. I mean, you know, we are, you know, you and I are talking when it's Pride Month. You know, we hope these conversations will be evergreen. But to be able to say to young people, you know, you can love your family and you can love yourself.
Yeah.
You really can. And the way you love yourself well might help you create some boundaries with family that help you love your family. Like this is part of what, like, can we come out, to use that expression, to what kind of love it is we need to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, you need some chosen family where you can just chill. Your biological family is always going to be the ones that have your blood and your DNA. You know, how do we navigate that? I think that's a good word.
Yeah. And it's literally like, I think, again, because I grew up in a culture which taught me that family was definitely about blood. You protect the family no matter what. You keep the secrets of the family no matter what. And we had some pretty nasty secrets in my family that pretty much like at the end of it, like my father decided he no longer wanted to be married to my mother. And so it's just like, well, then what were we really holding on to, you know, for?
Yeah.
So I got really like, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like, it was humbling to go from a family that was like cookie cutter perfect to having a family that was like 51% of all families in America.
Yeah.
It made me feel a little bit normal and recognizing too. This is something that I think that like I didn't really get till maybe late 20s was, and the sooner you can get this, your parents are people. And there's got to be a point in your journey when you transition the relationship from parent-child to parent to adult-child. You know, you're always gonna be parent-child in some way, but just like you have to move into the space of we are both adults here.
Yes.
And you know, I'm allowed to. Not only am I allowed, it is my edict within myself to protect my person, to protect my spirit.
Absolutely, that's right.
And if your family can't honor you in that way, that's data to respond to.
It is. It is. I'm often talking to people about how it's our job to grow up our parents. In other words, well, like raising your parents to be the parents you need. We lost my mom. These stories are in the book, and my dad's he hasn't read the book yet. We'll see how this goes. But, you know, we lost my mom 4 years ago to cancer. You said your dad, the cancer comes and eats them, right? But I just remember, you know, like there have been a few times, Kevin, in my life with my dad, who adores me, but still, like I am the dad, I am demanding, I am talking to you a certain kind of way, blah, 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 right? The last time that happened, I was graduating with my PhD, and he was just like not feeling in love with my friend, now my husband, John. It was just rude. And John left the graduation party, and I was like, oh, no. I'm grown. I'm 40.
Like,
I am 45 years old. You are in my house in New York that I bought my own. What? And you're acting like that. And we just had the confrontation of the most important one of my life. Either we're going to do it differently, or I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I will come and do your funeral because mommy's going to ask. And I'm not kidding. And I wasn't kidding. And my friends are like shocked at that story. I'm like, you know, sometimes you won't have that kind of confrontation with your posse. But if we don't care enough about the people we love to tell them what we need, is that really love?
Hello. It's actually a form of manipulation.
It is, right?
And I feel like as soon as you know what your needs are, you should try to communicate them.
Right.
I've got 3 rules of like radical honesty that I try to keep. One is I'm always okay to name how I'm feeling because I know that I'm responsible for taking care of those feelings no matter what. Even if someone else caused me to feel that way. I know that I'm responsible for them. 2, I always name my needs, and I know that I'm responsible for getting my needs met. So I can name it. I can request somebody to meet that need for whatever it is. If they can't meet it, still my job to get it met. 3rd thing, I got to ask for what I want. And I can always ask for what I want if I'm always okay with hearing no. And that, those 3 rules right there, like if you can name your need to your parent, to your family, to your posse, and they say, no, I can't do that, that's not a reflection on you. That's not them saying no to you. That's saying, I do not have it.
I cannot do it. Yeah.
So why? And then the question is, why am I mad that someone doesn't want to give me something that they do not themselves possess? It feels a little bit, it's an interesting strategy, but I don't think it'll work.
I love that. You're be honest about how you feel, be honest about what you need, and be honest about what you want, because you're responsible for each of those 3 things.
And if you get those 3 things, and I think I've played that out also in like my really, really close friendships here. I mean, I would say that the past 5-6 years have been like a pressure cooker of life for me. Like so much life has happened just in this 5 years. I used to live with my best friends for a minute because, when you're, young and plucky and like you don't have any money, you live together in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 people because that's how you roll. But by the time it came to the end of it, my friends did not know how to, shall we say, invite me to not live with them anymore because I'm a great friend. I'm not always the best roommate, Okay. My level of cleanliness is, I'm ADHD. And so like I've got little monuments to my life everywhere, all over the house. And they are, I wouldn't say they're neat freaks, but they're on a higher level than me. And I couldn't keep up. And that's something that they didn't know how to communicate to me.
Right.
And at the end of it, like, I was sad, but I wasn't mad. But like the thing I told them, I'm just like, the thing I'm upset about is that you didn't trust me enough to tell me that this was a problem the whole time. And now I feel like I've done you wrong and I've broken something that maybe I could have fixed. And and of course, that all just came from a lack of communication.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, like I told them, I said, if you ever have a problem with me again and you do not tell me, I will be very upset with you.
Good on you.
Because like, if you have a problem with, and goes for all my friends. I had someone call me a couple weeks ago to say, hey, you remember like when we made out at that party one time? I actually said yes when I wanted to say no because of power dynamics. So maybe.
Sorry.
And so it was like, you know what? I'm glad you told me because now I know. Now I know how to treat you. Now I know how to love you more rather than, rather than like guessing at something or making a misstep. Like that's why I'm so clear about like what I need and what I want because I'm more likely to get it.
Well, and also the truth actually does set us free. I mean, like, I'm sorry, but they're like, oh, that's in the scriptures. But actually,
no, that's a fact.
You are imprisoned if you are lying. You are in freaking jail if you are lying. You just are. You are in jail. And then you have to remember which lie you said. And you have to, like, you're pissed and you're pissed at you. So you're imprisoned in your anger. You're imprisoned in your resentment. You're imprisoned in the lie. Like,
and the thing about it is you don't even think it's a lie. You just think that you're, I'm just not being needy. I'm not asking. Right. I'm not saying how I feel because it's my problem. I should just be able to get over it. It doesn't matter if you should get over anything. Yes. If you are mad and you do not bring it out, that will eat you up. Anger that's not expressed turns into cancer, turns into anxiety, turns into sleepless nights.
It does. It does. And that's not good.
No.
I want to know. I want to know if the things we're saying right now translate to how we love the world. I think so, but I want us to talk about that. Like how does that truth, the owning your own stuff, being responsible for your, for articulating, getting your need. How does that translate to how we are lovers in the world? The world.
Right. I think in some ways I want to jump it back to power just for a second.
Sure.
Because I am somebody who is in a space in my life where I can actually vocalize all of these things. Because if you live in an abusive household or an abusive relationship, if you grew up chronically in poverty, all of the things, it is so hard to imagine a world in which you ask for what you need or want and get it.
Because the container you've lived in, the container you've grown up in, has not taught you that.
Yes. In fact, it's also taught you that you shouldn't ask for those things.
Right.
You should be grateful just to be breathing.
Right.
And that's not our birthright.
No.
Joy is our birthright. And we have to start respecting ourselves enough to be able to like get those needs met. So I would say like when it relates to how we love the world, I think in some ways it's leading by example. It's like showing, I mean, I think for myself, like the internet is my platform, right? You know?
Yeah.
I think by giving permission merely, you know, what's that old saying? When you are yourself, you give someone else permission to be the same thing.
Themselves, yeah.
I think it's very similar. If we can show up unapologetically as ourselves, if we show up unapologetically owning our BS, you know, the ways in which we fall short, if we own the fact that we are creatures who have needs and, you know, creatures who need one another, if we can own the fact that we are imperfect, I think that kind of example is very captivating. And I think it's also why we need like really good clergy out there across religious lines showing up like, how to fail in public, you know, how to mess up both in our personal lives and professional lives and still recognize that we're loved. So I think it's about example. Like show off how you live in freedom, let other people pick up the same thing. And then also something, again, the Course would say is that the whole goal of life really is to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And so this kind of goes beyond the purview of the Course, but again, I'm a practical theologian, so we do theology in real time.
That's right.
Is that if Jesus, my favorite person, obviously, he was doing theology in real time by like any time that there was a need that needed to be met, even if it would violate tradition or law, is like, let me meet this need because I have the power to do it.
Right.
And so that's how I kind of live with it. It's just like, if I have the power to alleviate somebody's suffering, I probably should do it. You know, I'm not worth more or less if I don't. I think just it would add more love to the world. So that's what I want to do.
Yep. I love the way you said that, Kevin. It's not about shame or whatever. It's like, I could do it.
I could do that.
Yep.
I could add more love to the world. And I recognize that as I give this love away, I that's what I secure for myself, because love is the endless resource, right?
Yep.
And so that love is probably going to look like, in our country, I don't know, universal health care. You know, right now, a lack of healthcare is a block to the awareness of love's presence, because if you can't feel good physically in your body, because you have chronic pain, chronic illness, because you just can't go get something treated, and there's no need for that. There's literally no need for that.
Right.
It's the same thing, like militarism, you know, like colonialism, white supremacy. These are all blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And so I think, as a student of Jesus and somebody who wants to like live with radical love and revolutionary love, as Valerie Kaur puts it, like I want to be somebody who reimagines the world where other people, like, so people don't have to like even question that it's possible for them. So I think it's like, for me, my goal is like, I'm here to stand in the gap for those who don't have it until we get there, you know? Yeah. And so I'm going to do my part. I'm going to show up I'm going to work, you know, like everyone, we have to be activists regardless of how that plays out.
Yep.
You know, whether you show up for a protest, whether you are calling, whether you're getting involved in your local BLM or DSA.
Or challenging your people at the dinner table. That's activism.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello. Mm-hmm. And that
we
I think,
don't talk like that. You know, doesn't work for me.
My favorite thing to do around the dinner table is if like someone says something like legitimate. Someone said like, I think Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. I said, how many of your Black friends feel when you say that? And they're like, I'm like, yeah, that's right. You don't have any Black friends because you're annoying. You ain't never been to a protest. You don't know shit. Shut up. Now, granted,
like that right there. That's activism.
Listen, I don't have time for people anymore. Like that's also, it's like people on Twitter and Instagram who like leave these mean comments. I just don't have time. I just like reverse troll them. I'm just like, oh my God, thank you for telling me that Leviticus. Thank you. I've never read it. And now my soul is saved.
Kevin. Oh my God. Listen, It's a joy to talk to you, and I don't even want to stop. But I do want to ask you to tell me, what do you know for sure about love?
What do I know for sure about love? I know for sure that love is the only thing that truly exists, and that which is all-encompassing can have no opposite. That's a line from a course, too, always. But, like, I really do believe that, like, there is love present in every single moment. There is, like, and by love, I mean God, I mean spirit, I mean energy, I mean Jesus, I mean you, I mean me, I mean everybody listening to this later. Like, there is a thing, a through line that just joins us all. And it's like, it's a reality that I can just say yes to. It's not a relationship I have to work on. It's not something I have to fix. It is merely if I just want to breathe in and return home.
There it is.
That's it.
That's beautiful.
And so, I'd say, like, love is always present. It can't be destroyed, and it won't be.
It won't be destroyed. It can't be destroyed. It can be blocked. And maybe our job as fierce lovers is to unblock it.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Spend your entire life unblocking your perception to love, and you'll do it for everybody else.
It's
very simple.
Kevin Garcia, I'm so glad I know you.
Mama Jacqui, I'm glad I know you too.
Let's do this some more.
I miss your face.
I know, I miss yours. Soon and very soon, we're going to get to see each other in person. I'm coming to Hotlanta. I've got to let you know when, because I want you to take me out for a, cocktail or something.
100%. I got you, sis.
Coming this summer, okay? Good to see you. Love you.
Thank you for having me. Mwah.
Thank you. Mwah.
Love Period is
Corey Big, Paul Swanson,
Izzy Spitz,
Sarah Janzak,
Jenna Kuiper,
Sarah Palmer,
Nicholas Kramer,
and I'm Calista Brewster. This podcast is produced by the Center for Action and Contemplation, which is located in the heart of New Mexico, thanks to the generosity of our supporters. We also have other podcasts you might like. You can find those wherever you like to listen by searching for Center for Action and Contemplation, or visit us at cac.org to find out more about our other programs. From the high desert of New Mexico, we wish you peace and every good.